Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Purifoy, Chairman of Learning Economy Foundation. We are really excited to have you here. Again, Education 3.0 Research Network. This is our third Friday call. We do this once a month. And this is an opportunity for us to bring together the Internet of Education and all the great work that's happening around the nation and the world, really, to discuss their projects and highlight really exciting things that are happening, to bring you updates on the national and the local front about all this great distributed decentralized education work that's happening. We've been really working through the alphabet each month. The first one was with ASU, A. The second was with Broward Lab, and now here we are with the C Lab for the third one. And so I have a feeling the next one will be a D. So we'll see what that looks like. But we're making these videos available on a YouTube channel. We'll definitely follow up and make sure you have these. And again, thank you for coming, and please use the comments to ask questions, and we'll cover those a little later on when we get to a Q&A. And so we have some amazing folks with us today. We're highlighting the Colorado's C Lab, which is an amazing statewide effort focused on how we can use distributed ledgers and new kind of exponential technologies to start to solve some really big challenges. And so it's a really, really exciting project. And we have, folks from the C Lab to speak, as well as from Colorado Department of Higher Ed and some of the research that's going on there across the state with some of the other projects, as well as some folks from Emsi, which is Amazing Skills Technologies, and Salesforce, and also U.S. Department of Education, and others, I think. So we'll kick it off. I'll turn it over to Taylor, who is the director of the C Lab, who can introduce the session and kick us off. So thanks again, everyone, for joining.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And thank you all for jumping in late in the week here. I know this is overlap for some of you because we had a call devoted to the work in Colorado. We do sort of a pulse locally once a month as well. So I know there's some duplication here. So thanks for hopping into this one as well. Just wanted to sort of give a real high level on some of the work that we've done over the past year or so, and then turn it over and just let folks that have sort of done some of this and been on the ground discuss their perspective, some of what they're working on, what this pandemic has done to their sort of life and work at the moment. So quick background, this project came together as sort of a just open collaboration. The Department of Higher Ed in Colorado and Learning Economy decided that we saw some potential with where the state was and some of the existing support and leadership. So we sort of symbolically, partnered up and shook hands earlier this year. Had a great kickoff with that, which I know a lot of you attended out in Denver late January. We have a summary report that I will share. I'll actually do that as I roll here. That sort of just gives you a sense of sort of what came of that initial kickoff in person. Hoping we can get back to some face-to-face work at some point, but glad we got this sort of initial kickoff in before the pandemic. So anyway, yeah, had a great kickoff. Sort of seeded, I think, some great work and gave folks a sense of what's possible. Since then, we've been sort of working both to manage our own new normal and the reality that is set in for all of us, and supporting, obviously, the educators and students that are affected by some of this work locally. So as we sort of move into, I guess, a rhythm now and feeling like the initial sort of craziness and some of the grief and the things that I think we've all been dealing with, we're hoping sort of from this point forward to kind of get back to work and try to build some normalcy back into our routines, even though most of us are doing that from home. So with that, we kicked off this Pulse call, which we'll do monthly. Had about 40 folks join just a couple days ago on Wednesday. That's going to be an ongoing call that we'll make available to folks local in Colorado that want to get a sense of how this is evolving, and obviously it's open to others beyond Colorado as well. We shared that kickoff summary, and we'll also be pushing out shortly a sort of roadmap and stakeholder guide that'll help add some framing around what our goals and plans are for the, cool, hey, thanks, look at that, for the coming year. And I'll let some others sort of fill in some of the details on what some of that work might look like and some of the existing projects that tie in. And then it's also just an open forum to answer questions and chat with folks. So that pulse is ongoing, and we're sort of in the active phase of really, you know, structuring a community locally in Colorado that can keep moving a lot of this work forward. So that was meant to be more of a teaser. I didn't want to get into too many of the details because we've got a bunch of folks here that are tied into the work, and I want to allow them the time to sort of unpack some of it. So with that, let's turn it over to Spencer and Michael, who thank you for both joining today and also a couple days ago, along with conference keynotes, virtual keynotes, and all sorts of things. So I appreciate your time this week. It's been a busy week. But Spencer and Michael, yeah, if you want to give a sense of some of the work going on at CDHE.
Absolutely. Thanks, Taylor, and thanks to everybody for joining the call. And for those of you we saw on Wednesday, getting a lot of digital FaceTime, so that's nice. So yeah, I think one thing that I wanted to share, and you briefly saw the nod to that document, which was kind of a summary of the C-Lab kickoff. I wanted to go step a little bit back kind of before that for those who are not familiar, and it's all right if I share my screen real quick, Duncan. For those of you who are not as familiar with the work that's going on in Colorado, this work, you know, has been ongoing, as I mentioned, or as Taylor mentioned, and it was kind of spurred through our Office of Economic Development and International Trade. So if you want a short chronicle on blockchain in Colorado, at least from the government perspective, you can go to this site, choosecolorado.com/blockchain, and it'll tell you a little bit more about our gubernatorially appointed council who made some recommendations on policy in the state, and then kind of how this fell into the lap of the Department of Higher Education. Well, we did play an active role. Our executive director was a member of this council, and you can kind of see the different departments here at the state level that were involved with this particular activity from the outset. So just before C-Lab, and kind of what led to a lot of these conversations between Learning Economy and the Department of Higher Ed, this was a little bit of the predecessor. So I thought I'd mention that for those who are interested. I'll go ahead and drop that into the chat here in just a moment as well. Beyond that, and I guess, or if somebody else wants to drop that in the chat, that's fine too. As we move beyond that and we kind of go into the C-Lab work, one thing I thought was really cool about the kickoff was kind of the perspectives that were brought and to our attention and shared during the panel. And one thing that I think Chris and Taylor wanted to make sure that we acknowledge was to embrace the success of the event. And so I think it was a really successful event. I think we had over 120 people there throughout the day, experts from all different areas and sectors. And so for us, it was really great to set the tone for this work in Colorado. And at the same time, I think if you turn your attention to the document that was shared earlier, there's constructive feedback from the event. This is actually the most important part to me and the most important part for the work that we're doing in Colorado, because I think this is the stakeholder input that we need in order to drive the initiative forward. There's lots of enthusiasm. There's lots of partnerships and collaboration taking place. But I think this unfiltered feedback that we have is something that we really want to embrace and something that we want to use to iterate as we move forward with our work. So it's something that we're concentrating on. So thank you to Learning Economy for putting together this summary, because it's really helpful for giving us direction with the C-Lab work in Colorado. As you all can imagine, and I'm sure is on your hearts and minds, you know, responding to the challenges posed by COVID-19 in your everyday work, your personal life, and your communities, just want to acknowledge that too. Thank you for the good work you're doing. I think everybody is just trying to lead their communities the best they can and participate. And so this kind of the inspiration that I see going on all over the place. We're doing that at the Department of Higher Ed. We have a number of initiatives in place to see how we can support our educators first and foremost, and our students first and foremost, but also our communities at large. So we've been kind of getting that message out, and there's a number of initiatives, and I'll drop those links into the chat as well. So that's kind of where our efforts are now. We do have this monthly call, as Taylor mentioned, the Pulse, and the first call was on Wednesday, which was a great kind of time to build community, digital community that we're trying to construct here around this work, but also, like we said before, kind of broader innovations in the work in innovation in education. So if you all are interested, you're more than welcome to drop in and see what's going on in Colorado, or maybe we can have some of you present at some time. Taylor, I think that might be kind of cool to bring in some outside perspectives as well as we do some benchmarking. So that's kind of it for where we are. And I want to turn it over to Michael too, to talk a little bit more about some other related projects that we have going on at the department.
Thanks so much, Spencer. It's great to be with you all today. I'm Michael Vaughn, Senior Director of Research and Data Governance at the Department of Higher Education here in Colorado. Very excited to be part of this group, and very excited to learn more about what's going on in this field. And I think I was very excited and felt great about the convening that Taylor and Spencer have been talking about, really bringing together this ecosystem to share ideas and to be able to all be on the same page and moving in the same direction. I think there's a lot of great organic energy that has sprung up in various places, and the best that we can, take advantage of that and direct it and align it is something that we're very much into and looking forward to doing more of. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you all today was a little of the work that we've done in terms of My Colorado Journey. Some of you might have heard about that, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. Let's see, do this. I have a few slides to share, and I'm going to probably really run through a lot of this. But I will share this with Taylor and Duncan afterwards, and that way you all can read it at your leisure and really be able to see all that we're doing. And really this My Colorado Journey project is centered around education and workforce training, information and opportunities for individuals, and being able to really give them the information they need to make the best decision available to them. I think we most definitely see this as a center point in terms of the recovery that we're all hoping for and banking on going forward after the COVID-19 crisis. And so really being able to support our workforce, to support displaced workers in some way, shape, or form. So again, I'm going to breeze through a lot of these things, but a little bit of the why of why we've been doing all of this. It's a privilege to live in Colorado, but unfortunately in Colorado, we have a very leaky pipeline in terms of education to workforce and being able to look at all of those post-secondary outcomes for various education and training programs. Out of 100 ninth graders who start high school in Colorado, 79 graduate high school, 43 go on to post-secondary, 32 persist in post-secondary, and only 25 out of those 100 go on to complete a credential. And so when we look at our post-secondary education attainment rates in Colorado, we are near the top. However, we have a long way to go. In terms of research that's been out there by Georgetown and others, really needing 66% or 70% of the workforce being able to have that post-secondary credential, and really working from there to make sure we have a vibrant economy. So when we currently sit at 58% in terms of educational attainment. So really trying to reach that 44, 42% in terms of people who don't have some sort of post-secondary credential. We've done a lot of work in this space historically in Colorado. We used to have a platform called College in Colorado, which really provided a comprehensive system of tools and content on job exploration, academic exploration, college planning, financial aid planning, all the rest, and really being able to have this be a tool that really helped professionals at the high school be able to guide students on the path that worked best for them. It also aligned with something that we have here in Colorado, individual career and academic planning at the K-12 level. So making sure that high schoolers are able to have that intentional conversation about education, workforce, and those opportunities going forward. We had a lot of great success with this site in terms of outreach and partnerships with different agencies. We had some very good usage of the site over the years. Unfortunately, for a lot of different reasons, the funding for this program expired. And so we had to think of where do we go from here and what does this look like in terms of next steps and what we want to do. So why do we want to be able to help students along this path? You know, there are multiple pathways to achieving great outcomes, whether that's the public sector, private sector, occupational schools, whatever that might look like in terms of education and training opportunities. There's honor in all different types of pathways, and the economy requires lifelong learning, and we need to be able to support that. However, unfortunately, our existing tools don't reflect these realities, and there's a lot of inequities when it comes to being able to provide that information to individuals. And we really need to make the tools in a way that responds to individuals where they are and the needs that they have most immediately. So this was a problem that we couldn't solve on our own, just the Department of Higher Education. We worked with a lot of different state agencies and being able to put out there what we wanted to do. So in coming together with our Workforce Development Council and our Department of Labor and Employment and our Department of Human Services, being able to say, what would the vision of this be? And where do we want to go down the road in terms of what we can provide to individuals? It's beyond the scope of any one agency. Unfortunately, as some of you might know, the risk tolerance for government is low. And so if we are going to do something, we have to make sure that we do it intentionally and collaboratively so that it can persist and we can have the best chances for success. We also in Colorado have some very restrictive laws around student data privacy. And so being able to navigate those in a responsible way has been very important and necessary. And there's so much promise in terms of partnerships that are critical to this success. So being able to leverage, again, this organic energy that's sprung up in Colorado in so many ways, shapes, and forms. So again, the coalition beginning with our Workforce Development Council, the Department of Higher Education, Department of Labor and Employment, and the Department of Human Services, and being able to put all this together. So being able to scope out what does this look like in terms of what we would want to see and how it can support all of our goals. It started with an RFI, which then turned into an RFP, basically lining out all of these goals. Oh, and by the way, we don't have any money right now to support these efforts. So anyone who would be responding to this RFP, we would need to bring together philanthropy and other partners to the table to make it work and make this successful. We actually did have a few people who responded to the RFP and eventually chose some of our partners, who I'll mention in a little bit, to help us launch this product. So when we, look at our massive amounts of information and technology that we have out there, and we ask our phones or Siri or Alexa or whoever, where should I go to get a good burger? There are lots of good decisions that students and individuals can find. You can find maps of ways to get to the best burger in town. You can see an ordered list with comparable measures and costs and value of those burgers, and then routes to be able to get to that burger from where you currently are. When an individual is doing a similar thing of where should I go to get a good job nearby, unfortunately, it is not as easy, it is not as seamless. In some cases, there are binders of papers in workforce centers, being able to show in people of opportunities. We have great things like things done at the Department of Education at the national level in terms of the college scorecard. However, it doesn't have, in some cases, really specific information about specific programs and those outcomes and what does that mean for the individual. And then also very few routes in terms of those personalized recommendations and what you want and what you want to be able to get out of the system. And again, data in terms of what this looks like, at least in Colorado, and I think this is probably similar in a whole host of other circumstances, it's very fragmented. We have education, we have human services, we have K-12 education, post-secondary education, all of these things are separated. So being able to think about how to do this in a coordinated way is paramount to success. So enter My Colorado Journey, really being able to build this groundbreaking platform that connects individuals to work and education support services that are personalized, and being able to also provide that comprehensive support. So being able to have an individual do an interest assessment of where they are and what they want to do and what they would like to see their future be, and be able to serve up those opportunities that are available to them, and then also pair that with other additional supports, like the human side of supports that students need in order to be successful. So with all of this, we really want to be able to increase the impact and serve more Coloradans with fewer resources, be more efficient in all that we do in terms of collaboration with professionals, and being able to reduce redundancy. You know, we have agencies who have very good intentions, but sometimes we replicate our efforts. And so being able to coordinate in a more intentional way, I think, is something that's very exciting and very beneficial to the entire ecosystem in Colorado. So again, we use these personalized recommendations based on the information that someone gives to the system to be able to personalize what they can see and what they want to do, being able to leverage all of the information that agencies collect and are able to serve up to individuals. And then again, as I mentioned, being able to do this in a private and secure way because of the laws that govern student data privacy in Colorado, and of course FERPA as well, being able to be in compliance with all of that as we do this important work. So again, the coalition, at least on the state side, the Workforce Development Council, Department of Higher Ed, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Human Services, and the Colorado Community College System, coming together with our vendor partners, Perrin and BrightHive, to be able to see what this looks like in terms of the user interface and how we show this to individuals and how we best get it in their hands to ensure success. So in terms of some of the data that goes behind this, being able to do a couple different things, being able to map all the different options that are available in terms of credential and training providers, how to map that to skills and competencies, and those wraparound services that really help a student of any age complete whatever they're starting in terms of education and training. Being able to do measures in terms of wage gain, ROI, satisfaction, what does the transition from one point in life to the other look like, and then being able to recommend all of this, again, in a personalized way that really meets the needs of learners of all ages, not just high school students, but returning adults, and being able to really leverage APIs and different ways to share data to best make that possible. So one of the data philosophies that we have is we want everything through this My Colorado Journey project to be open, connected, and personalized, and really being able to have that public data infrastructure to power all of this. And not just the MCJ experience, but there are also so many other use cases that might arise as we continue to build this out with our partners. And so being able to really provide that education and training so that people have increased lifelong earnings and enhanced employment resiliency. I think we're seeing a lot of that right now with the massive amounts of unemployment and unemployment insurance claims, and being able to make sure that people have the skills and the credentials that they need to be more resilient in the workforce when events like this happen. So as part of the data trust that we're building with My Colorado Journey, really being able to link education and training opportunity data with job opportunity data. So really bridging that gap between education institutions and employers, programs that are offered in jobs, credentials awarded and the credentials that are required, skills and competencies, and then all of those education outcomes, which then track to employment outcomes. So very intentionally thinking about this education and workforce ecosystem in Colorado, and how do we build a data trust where all of these agencies and partners can share all of this information so that all Coloradans can benefit. And again, this really just helps put together the puzzle pieces that we have in terms of all of these different players in Colorado, not only state agencies in the public sector, but also our education providers and our workforce providers, to be able to make sure that we are connecting these pieces in a way that's intentional and beneficial to everyone involved. Very broadly, in terms of how all of this supports our goals, we have our master plan at the Department of Higher Education. Our goals around erasing equity gaps, increasing credential completion, and addressing that belief gap so that individuals can know that different education and training opportunities are available to them, and saying that you can do this, and this is something that is available, and there's support for you in a variety of different other ways. And then with our partners at the Department of Labor and Employment, being able to provide more specific resources by region, and making sure that individuals can have that information so it meets them where they are in terms of geography, in terms of position in life, and in terms of other human needs. I'm just going to throw some of these links up there. And again, we'll provide all of this to Taylor and Duncan so that we can share this with you all. Some FAQs about My Colorado Journey, and then my wonderful colleagues at the Department of Higher Education, Julia Pernak, Freddie Burciaga, and Jamie Burciaga, who have really led a lot of this work and are the experts when it comes to specific questions. So I know that's a lot of information. I breezed through it as quickly as I could. I'm happy to take questions and talk more.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I have a feeling that's typically not a 10-minute deck, so thank you for being as efficient as possible.
Of
It's such
course.
great work. So yeah, I mean, hopefully some of these pieces start to fit where, you know, we're helping support as much as we can at a real high level, kind of an umbrella over this idea of a we say learner GPS quite a bit, but I love the sort of, you know, hamburger analogy and you know, building towards something that allows that for a learner. I think that's something we all understand is important. Anyway, C-Lab, then we have CDHE's work, of which My Colorado Journey is obviously a big piece. And now we're going to take one step down and get a little more granular with Kelly and let her discuss some of the skills work she's doing at Emsi. So Kelly, if you want to take over. And certainly, Michael, we can open up some questions now. If you have to hop, I want to make that an option. But if you're open to staying on, then we'll obviously open it up later.
No, of course. I'm happy to stay.
Cool. So Kelly, go ahead.
All right, I will jump in. Well, hi, everyone. I am Kelly Bailey. I'm the director of Emsi Open Skills at Emsi. And most people who are not familiar with Emsi, some people call us economic modeling specialists. Some people call us EMSI. But essentially, we are just a labor market analytics firm. Thank you. I just saw the chat pop up. Well, what I'll do is I'm going to do a quick little brief introduction on what we tend to focus here on at Emsi. I'm going to give a couple of sneak peeks, but I want to keep it brief because I know we have a couple of other folks that are going to have some time as well. So I will jump in and share my screen here. Bear with me one second. Oh, that's the sneak peek. Let me take us one quick step back here and let me talk a little bit about, again, super briefly, I did a webinar last week, so anyone who wants to super delve into this, I will make sure that as part of the follow-up from here, I send that webinar and of course any questions I can take. But just really quick, you guys know now who Emsi is, but we are owned by Strata Education Network, the nonprofit organization. We're both very mission aligned on making sure that people are successful through pathways, through education and employment. Me personally, I have been working on this for over 15 years, trying to build up skill data as the foundation for skills-based learning and employment and hiring, I guess you could say. But here at Emsi, we've done something really interesting, you guys. So about 3 years ago, prior to my time joining Emsi, although I've worked for 3 major labor market analytic firms on this same problem, but prior to me joining Emsi, my former colleague who actually did this work with me originally started building out a skill, again, we typically would have called it a taxonomy, but today we call it a library. So essentially that same problem that Michael just described, being able to communicate between all of the various components involved in learning and hiring, was sort of broken. It's been broken for a long time. The interesting thing about this particular crisis situation is that all of the work, many of us who've been doing this for a long time are probably thinking the same thing, and I've seen posts about it. Man, all the stuff we're getting done right now is like stuff that is happening in days that took us years. So this is really exciting. But anyway, so what we did here at Emsi is we worked on this particular issue here. And we wanted to break it down to skills, but in a totally new and different way. So again, I've worked on skills for a long time. Skills originally were built in this very taxonomical approach. So it's like top-down structure. At Emsi and Strata, what we focus on is something called skill shapes. And essentially what we've done is completely just flipped the model. At Emsi, we have access to over hundreds of millions of job postings as part of our real-time labor market data, as well as hundreds of millions of social media profiles and resumes. So a really good depiction of what's happening on the sort of supply and demand side from a real-time perspective in the labor market. And what we realized as we started doing this was that, man, if you just look at it, how they naturally come together, let's say in a type of job. So all of these skills can be really messy in terms of data, but when we actually look at how they group together, and again, what we call skill shapes, we can start to see where certain things overlap. We can start to see when there are emerging skill opportunities. We can see when people have gaps and what are sort of like best ways to fill them. So when we decided on this new approach, we jumped in feet first, whole body, right, into the deep end. And we were like, let's just build out this library. And you know what, again, in being folks that have been working on this for a long time, if we just go ahead and open it up as a free resource for everybody to use, Could that get everyone on the same foundational playing level, like playing ground? And actually all these technologies we worked over the number of years, if they were all built off of the same language, could we all connect better? And that was our initial thought. So I'll just pop you over really quickly to our skills website. I'm not going to walk through this because the webinar I did last week does, and like I said, happy to pass that along to you guys. But essentially, everything you ever want to know about our skills work is right here on this website. We also have direct free access to our skills library further down on the page. And also, just so that you guys know, on our skills library in particular, there are 3 components that you'll get when you go ahead and sign up for this free API. You'll get our over 30,000 skills. You're going to get every skill word has a uniquely identifiable machine readable tag. They all have like a small identifier. Again, we don't define skills in terms of like this word means this. We define them as how they group together. But we do want to let people know like when it surfaces as a technical skill, human skill, etc. And then we also include a limited number of extractions. The great thing about this particular crisis is that a lot of the work that we've been doing, like I said, is just moving forward a lot faster. One of the pieces that we've been working on are ways through this data that you can optimize a resume, optimize a job posting, that you can actually create personalized learning and career pathways. And we were starting to surface these as other free additional resources. So this optimize your resume piece is the first one. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a sneak peek to something that we'll be releasing next week as well as a free resource. But just to pop you guys back into really quickly, I wanted to mention this, and it was only because Michael, something you said really popped into me. Oops, sorry. I mentioned we are owned by Strata. Strata is really focused on something that we call the new learning ecosystem, which actually sounds quite similar to the work that you guys are doing. And that's kind of the way that Emsi is approaching this as well. Obviously, looking at this in an entirely new way and including all of these different components. The positive thing about the Strata family is that we have affiliates available that are working on all of these different pieces. So besides Emsi, we also have Road Trip Nation, we also have Inside Track, we also have Kale, we also have Dexterra. So this world that we're working on here is actually something that's getting a lot closer. There are now, again, because of this unprecedented amount of people applying for unemployment, we have been getting requests from states to start putting forward the technologies that we've been working on to help solve these issues in extremely new and innovative ways. Now, I have to apologize for the slide that I'm about to throw up that kind of shows the full picture of what I'm talking about. This is a completely made by me homemade slide, so bear with me. But I wanted to just really quickly, before I jump in and show you this new piece of the tool that we're working on, how we were kind of approaching this. So my friend and colleague that worked for me for a long time was actually a client of mine. She was running the Department of Labor in New Jersey in the 2008 recession as a client. So again, I was with the organization providing her data. And at that time, our organizations went completely outside of the box. What most people thought was quite insane. And that was, what if we just stopped doing what we were doing and what's not working and helping people get jobs, and we do something new? And this is kind of what that approach was. Now, it's taken so many years, like I said, to even get close to where we are here. But the concept being, based on skills, what are the pieces of the puzzle, actually quite similar to what Michael described, which is the only reason that I'm not going to go into this too much, but what are the pieces of the puzzle that actually help get us further along in helping people? Beyond making sure that we're creating these personalized learning and career pathways, we need to be able to skillify all learning content to make the correct matches. We need to be able to look at regions because every region has their own strengths in terms of talent and supply. And then from a company perspective, we're also able to help organizations directly look internally at what skills their employees have and figure out how to either refocus people or pull in people that make a better fit. So this is kind of like the dream. And again, this stuff is now coming out hot and heavy just because of the time. So the piece that I'm going to share with you guys, total sneak peek, you know, this is not even live yet, so this is super fun stuff, but this is an early prototype of our personalized learning and career pathway tool, what we're going to really call like an upskilling tool. What we've done, and I've preloaded this. So based on a person's goal, we actually gather all of we're essentially building out their skill shape. So I'm gathering their former education, their former work history, all of the jobs that they've ever had. Everyone is different, right? So everyone has their own personal shape of skills. And then what we're doing behind the scenes is we're matching them. Remember that visual I gave you guys of the skill shapes that overlap? We're actually saying, based on the gaps that you have, here are some really great other skill shapes in terms of jobs that you might be a good fit to. And as you start delving into these potential opportunities, you can see visuals around green, meaning skills that you have, grayed out being skills that you don't currently have, so essentially your skill gaps. And you also have the opportunity to say when you want skills, which actually changes what you're seeing here anytime I make any adjustments. We've loaded this with free non-credit courses from Coursera, edX, Udemy, and we also have completely live job postings, and depending on your location, you can switch that in, that can be matched to your particular skills. So you guys, this is going live next week. We'll just like pretend that it's all brand new when it goes live, but this will be a free resource. And from the state's perspective, when you guys are really helping these people try to get reemployed, if there are things like, you know, this is what when I say scratching the surface, I can't even begin to tell you, like we start looking at things like career transitions, how do we create better pathways? There's all cool stuff, but this is kind of like the basic thing. So what I'll make sure I do besides answering questions is make sure you guys get a copy of, unfortunately, I can't share this quite yet, but as soon as it comes live, I'll make sure that I do, but I'll make sure you have all the other areas that I mentioned as well as follow-ups from this. So hopefully that helps a little bit, give you a background on what we're working on.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, we had a moment on another call when you brought up the dream and had this like vision towards the future that was a pretty epic moment. So it's cool to see a lot of that coming together. And yeah, excited to have that launch and see how it plugs in. And obviously there's a ton of overlap. And again, all of this centers around the idea of openness, the fact that a lot of these skills libraries and things are fully accessible and can be utilized in other systems. That's the key. So we're running probably 6 to 8 minutes behind, something like that. So I'm going to shift the agenda a little bit just to make sure we make time and it flows well. If it's cool with Phil and Sharon, maybe 5 to 6 minutes each. Phil, I'll maybe let you go next. And then certainly we still want some Q&A time, but if you have burning questions, make sure they end up so we can just prioritize and answer those if we don't have a ton of time at the end. So Phil, maybe 5 to 6 minutes on your perspective. I know Sharon has a few things she wants to share and some good opportunities. And then Chris is also going to jump on and sort of help tie a nice bow over the top of a lot of this.
Sounds good. Can everybody hear me? Is that good, Taylor? Can you hear me? Awesome. I'm almost going to share my screen and go really fast. I'm glad I went after Kelly because we are working together right now. And I think I call this the moonshot. We really got to really think about this deeply right now and create a new operating system for work and learning. That's why I'm really excited to work with the learning economy folks. And I'm a Colorado resident. I got my official Patagonia hat on like Taylor. So we're official. Forward-looking statement, I work for Salesforce. I'm Vice President of Innovation. The stuff I'm going to show you, some of it is not GA'd yet, not out in the world, so don't make any investments on anything I talk about today. First off, I want to start, I don't know if I can get this back here. Hold on a sec. Oh, sorry. These transformational technologies, some of the stuff that Kelly's working on is in that middle section around transformational tool sets, I call them. I think the computable badges have been around for decades and finally starting to make sense of them because this magical thing called a blockchain arose a few years ago and we're starting to realize how to kind of implement it. I think this is one thing that's really interesting to us because we have a platform called Trailhead that has about 3 million learners on it. We've issued about 30 million of these badges without any metadata. So we have a way to now back in a skills-based taxonomy working with Emsi and some other folks to make these badges computable and also make them transferable between some of our partners. This is the work with Kelly and Emsi and this open skills taxonomy with WGU and some of our industry partners like Walmart, thinking about what open skills taxonomies mean for them and mean for the industry. And I think Kelly hit it right on the head. This is one of these tool sets that really is going to help us transform. We've been waiting for this for a long time. JDX, another thing I think is really important around how industry folks are asking for talent. We have to be able to create this language that we can translate, and this is a big part of it as well. Salesforce Blockchain, we've kind of constructed this like we do the rest of our platform. Clicks not code, make it super easy for people to implement. And we started with this idea around trust networks. And that's the work I did with, see Dr. Long, Phil Long's on our call here today. So hi P1, I'm P2. We worked together at ASU around trying to create this trust network called the Trusted Learner Network that we kind of proofed last year. And we've kind of, an unconference, this last time I actually left my house was March 5th in Tempe, Arizona to hold this unconference. I know some of you were there with us, but we really wanted to understand the proposition for DLTs in education and not do it in a bubble. Really, this is time for a community to come together and create a dialogue around this technology. And we really were excited about how many people showed up and participated. And we found some really great opportunities in reducing the friction and around individual agency and consent when you start to think about how this technology actually functions. You guys talked to Phil Long last week. He was the A in the first collab meeting around what we did with them. But this is the Trusted Learner Network. Our blockchain is built on Sawtooth. We have some interesting other technologies around Postgres and IPFS doing some work, but literally letting that learner record be transferable between a community college and ASU in what we call reverse transfer. So it's a way to allow both ASU, both of the academic partners and the learner have value in this new way. So we really unpacked a bunch of different use cases. This is the one we landed on. Now, what we were able to show there, this is where it's kind of leading us. I'm doing some work right now with a really big healthcare provider around interoperable learner records, and what are we going to do around a nurse's profile? So if you look at the healthcare sector, especially now today with this terrible tragedy in our world, how do they really source and find talent in that sector? It's when you really understand it, it's actually kind of unbelievably frictionful. But when you start to understand a nurse with their profile and their capabilities, because it's a very standardized framework that nurses are judged by anyway. So we put that ability in their pocket and let them see different opportunities across a large healthcare system. So that's one idea around how these interoperable learner records could work outside of just education. And for us at Trailhead, or at Salesforce, we have this platform. We've put it up about 5 years ago. It's garnered about 3 million people now. We're trying to grow it to about 10 million. But what it does is allow people to get these in-demand skills, earn the credentials, and connect opportunities for free. Because we sell a platform that looks like a bunch of Legos. And we need some really great people to help our customers innovate with those Legos and build these beautiful structures. So it does take education. So this is something we do for free, and we'll do it forever for free. But if we start to back in some of that skills-based understanding of what those badges actually are, communicate to, we actually create a way that we can have these 8 personas in our world and have somebody with a profile. Now I can use some of the technologies with Emsi and some of these things to start to create deltas between these two places. So I can have an administrator who wants to be a developer and give them a customized pathway to get there. Because what we're doing right now is trying to understand the competency-based statements underneath our learning objectives to align to these skills-based taxonomy so we can create like personalized learning journeys just for our Trailblazers. But this is where it gets interesting. So I think it is the new operating system. Trusted Learner Network or something like it, and there'll be many of these networks that give people consent and give them permissions around their data. But when we connect academic customer partners, our Trailhead, other certifications. Now, one interesting thing about Trailhead is we have a way to put that inside of our customers' organizations, call it My Trailhead. So remember, we have all these talented people in the world, we call them Trailblazers, helping our customers innovate. Now, if we put that interface in their world and nuance those skills maps based on their industry, now they have a customized way to grow their own talent over a lifetime. And as we deliver new updates, they automatically just populate those skills graphs and help people get into those new roles. But I think opening this up to 250,000 of our businesses gives education a whole new opportunity to kind of service this market and fill in these skills gaps quite quickly. So that marketplace is something I'm very, very interested in. So I'm gonna stop there. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Taylor. Hope I went quick enough.
That's perfect. And yeah, Phil, I know 10 minutes for you is certainly not enough either. That could be a day long at least. But thanks for the sneak peek. Amazing stuff. And yeah, it's So we are running a little bit behind, so certainly plug questions into the chat. We'll certainly try to get there. And maybe with the mention of JDX and some of these other evolving projects, Chris, maybe do you want to give a quick 2-minute sort of high level on how this plugs into our sort of vision at Learning Economy, maybe some of the roadmap for C-Lab, and then we'll let Sharon kind of take the last 8 to 10 minutes to give the national perspective.
Yeah, no, I'll move quick. Thank you. This is so exciting. Thank you everyone who's been speaking and the rest of you who've joined. You know, at the C-Lab, you know, there's exciting work happening as you're seeing and hearing. You know, these are some of the great folks. But so many others. You know, the C-Lab really represents kind of an organic consortium, if you will, of almost 100 different stakeholders from across the state. Amazing, you know, ideas and work and, you know, things going into that. And so, you know, for us, the idea is, you know, let's build a statewide internet of education, right? An open utility space where we can start to prove a lot of these amazing models and create case statements for other areas, you know. And as everyone's speaking about, you know, a lot of this has to do with kind of mapping skills to the new economy, right? And the GPS ecosystem is really what we model that after, right? And that didn't happen overnight either. We had to launch satellites and, you know, learn to triangulate and all kinds of things to follow. And so similarly, we have to build that infrastructure. You know, the great thing is that technology exists, and we really see that built on, you know, 5 key utility marketplaces. One is, you know, to connect the equity networks. So, I mean, first, let's just make sure that everyone has access to the internet, right? Then, you know, let's create digital wallets and spaces for the storage of that information, a lifelong learning portfolio that's self-sovereign and owned by the learner. You know, then let's, you know, create these skills libraries that they've been speaking about today that are so important. Let's have better data down to the course level. Let's store those and understand how those connect. And from there, you know, we need to be able to also translate, you know, all of those data standards. So I need to be able to transfer my degrees and credentials between, you know, institutions and employers and across borders regardless of the data standards. And then from there, like we talked about, the GPS, this is My Colorado Journey, is doing amazing, amazing work in Colorado to start to map those pathways towards the value center so that a learner can really optimize their life, right? And they can retool it as the world changes and as they change. You know, and from there you build, again, why are we called Learning Economy? Because this is a future with these marketplaces or with these utilities, if you will, where skills are valued like assets, right? And they have currency in the marketplace, the same as a degree or currency itself, right? And so, you know, essentially those utilities come together to create that new economy ecosystem, if you will. And we do that through collabs, you know, the C-Lab being one of those. And at the center of that, we're developing for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the T3 initiative, a hub for interoperable learner record information. And so this becomes a resource nucleus that is being worked on now that will support all these different pilots nationally and locally. And again, so back to the C-Lab, right? So specifically, there are different labs that are playing different roles in this and doing different pieces of it. In Colorado, the work really will will continue with digital wallets in the fall. And so bringing together universities and employers so the learner can have their degree in their wallet and transfer those. And so we're targeting those pilots for the fall, and then that work will continue from there. So lots of amazing work going on, and you know, if you're new to this and interested in being involved, you know, reach out to us. You know, you can reach out to Taylor and others. But so what you won't find with us are NDAs. What you will find is all ships rise on the river ethos. You know, for us, we're really trying to do something that's collaborative and that's public good. So that's at the root of what we're doing in Colorado, and we're really, really excited. Thanks, Taylor, and everyone else.
Awesome. So yeah, I hope it feels okay. And Sharon, thank you for sort of sitting through and closing us out. But that's Colorado context, and to end, we'd love to just let you sort of give the broad context, some of the work going on at the U.S. Department of Ed. I have a soft spot in my heart for a lot of this work, seeing some of it seeded through some of the early summits, but wanted certainly to give you some time to share. And there's one question for Kelly that came through in the Q&A that we could probably just address separately. But Sharon, you've got 8 to 10. It's all yours.
No, I don't need 8 to 10 minutes. I can talk really, really fast. Hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Liu. I work at the Department of Education in the Office of Educational Technology, and my area is post-secondary and adult education. I have just put a link into the chat, which is our Department of Education coronavirus response. All of the information that you could possibly want about regulations and how to not break the law while serving students at a really ridiculously fast pace. I've also just put a second link, which is our Medium site. We are throwing up a series called Keep Calm and Connect All Students, which is meant to be bite-sized interpretations of the regulations and tips for families and caregivers who are now supervising education for the very first time, in addition to some bite-sized pieces of advice that we will be synthesizing from our colleagues and all of you in the field who are doing the excellent and hard work. So please reach out to me and let us know if there are ways that we can be supporting you better. I feel like that is our key job anyway. And so if you can give us tips on how we can do that better, then we would be really glad to hear them. With that said, what I did was I put into the notes all of the things that I'm going to say really fast so that you can just join along. So the Department of Education is actually in the process of thinking about education blockchains, and we are taking a number of different sort of paths to understanding the role that technology like distributed technologies like blockchain can do some of the things that others like Michael and Kelly and Phil have talked about earlier. I won't get into the details, but I think one of the things that I would like to say is like this is an interesting time, right? Because like a lot of my job on a day-to-day basis is dealing with the crisis aspect of it. They're like every institution, all the education providers and students need cash, and they need to sort of address some of the world is on fire issues. But I think there's also a tremendous opportunity, and I hope I don't sound like any kind of vulture. There's an opportunity to think about what do we want when we emerge in the after times for our system of education and workforce to look like. And what are the ways that we can invest and we can encourage partnerships that we can build towards that together, and obviously taking very small steps because that is the capacity, I think, with which most people can do that right now. So we have a few things that are rolling out. So we had commissioned a research report that looks at the landscape of distributed ledger technologies in the context of education. I think several of you on the phone were interviewed in that process, so thank you for your time. A couple of the key things that came out of that are the importance of personal data and agency, lifelong learning, and the value of connected ecosystems. And I think that this is worth saying a lot. There are a lot of people now that are in our system of education, especially post-secondary learners that are the non-traditional, the adult, the working learners, that will have a very difficult time continuing their education because probably they need to work more. And that's actually most people right now that a lot of our public institutions serve. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to think really hard when we say credential interoperability, credit interoperability, transfer, skills-based economy. Like, what does that actually look like for a person who needs to take extra shifts because they really cannot afford their rent? And how can they, this is like the tragedy here is that those are the individuals that do need their degrees because more and more there is a demand from the workforce that people have certain sets of skills. So how can we continue to build this ecosystem based on the open data infrastructure, based on credentials, standards that can actually be beneficial for those individuals that need us to support them the most? So we are going to be talking a little bit about our research report on a webinar next week. This is actually through the ACE Engage group. So I think you do have to be an ACE member, but ACE membership is, generally through institutions of higher ed or like higher ed departments. I'm not entirely sure how this works, but there is a link that I put in there. And the question is like, what is the role that blockchain can play in learning continuity? And thinking about not just blockchain itself, but the kind of infrastructure that we need to ensure that those students can continue to learn and continue to receive credit for their achievements, whether it's from the workplace or in institutions. And the week following that, I think I did get the dates wrong. So let me do this. Let me update this in real time. So now in the agenda, it's officially correct. but we're going to talk about credit interoperability and the reverse transfer use case as a test case for when you exchange data, what are the privacy regulations and other concerns that you need to be aware of? Because we all want this, right? A student agency, I have control, I can share how I want, but actually there are a lot of things that sort of complicate that, which is not to say that we can't do it, but I think we'll just have to be a little bit more considerate about how we do it. So that's 2 upcoming webinars, as well as a research report that we plan to launch at the end of this month, if all goes well. So I'll just stop there and allow you to do questions. I think there's a question for Kelly and then for you to wrap.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And yeah, I mean, spot on. There's no better way to close. I mean, everything you said, I think is exactly what we're all sort of thinking and feeling, how to move forward and both be energized, but also be sympathetic to what we're building on the other end, what actually, comes out of this. This game is not set. So I think we have a big role to play in this community to, again, build something that's equitable for everybody on the other side and to solve some of the problems. So that's about it. We've got another minute or two. I know for folks that have to jump, feel free. I know myself and others are probably happy to hop on or stay on for another 4 or 5 minutes, answer any questions. I wanted to share, if you want another deep dive on C-Lab, actually, Spencer opened up this conference. I'm closing it out, but the eLearning Consortium of Colorado has been holding a virtual conference all week. So that'll be at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time today. Again, devoted to the work with C-Lab in Colorado specifically. So, and this idea of infrastructure inversion. I like to get philosophical and meta, so it'll also get a little weird, I think. That's it. Chris, anything else or anyone else that wants to close, say any closing words? Otherwise, I think we can wrap.
I would just say that, again, thank you for all the panelists and everyone else who's joined, virtually. We will be sending a video of this out as well as the transcript of the chat with all those great links. So, don't worry about missing those. We'll make sure you get access to all that. So thank you so much. And please reach out. We want to work with you.
Same time, same place next week. We'll do, or next month, sorry. We'll do it again. So until then, stay safe, everybody.